Hey, Scott, thanks for making time today. Welcome to the show, and I'm excited to have you as one of our guests. Scott is a veteran of browser wars, and today we're going to talk about what kind of impact will technology have or is having with his industry focused on advertising services. Scott, I noticed H2 works with some impressive companies, and I'm really excited to dive into how you've adopted being a technology innovation companies while being a brand marketing as well. So maybe before I start asking you some of the questions, tell us a little bit about your background and some of the things that H2 has been up to.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I'm glad to be on the show. I'm relatively new to H2, actually. I just started there back in August as a president. But my path to getting here is actually a little unusual. I'm actually a software developer. I'm a programmer by trade. So I started my career writing code, which I think I was really mediocre at, which is how I ended up being a manager
Me
type.
too.
And at some point in the early 2000s, ad agencies were trying to figure out how to make use of the internet in earnest. People with my skill sets, particularly with skill in the web, were sought after within agencies. And that sucked me into the sort of ad agency world where I've remained for the last 20 years as a strategist, actually. And so technology is my sort of the default lens I put on any particular thing that comes up in our line of work. But H2 is a little different. H2 is an ad agency in the truest sense. And I think all industries digital in the last 20 years has like made the necessity for their capabilities to change
Yep.
substantially. So
Yep.
there are lots of people that I work with that have all sorts of good experience with digital and know their way around digital marketing ecosystems and stuff like that. What's different now, though, in this time for me is that they were trained for that, and it wasn't happenstance the way it was for people my age that got into the industry. They come out of school with having learned about digital marketing, which was just not an option when I was young. So that's created a lot of change and good change, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I just came back from South by Southwest, and I don't know if much about that, but there's three different divisions. There's innovation and tech, there's film and media, and then there's music, of course. And what I was noticing down there of incredible about a new type of brand marketing or paid advertising. These are influencers, and they're out there promoting customers' brands through their influence. And when I talked to CEOs, and we did a survey down there, 72% of CEOs in the general industry has saying that their investment in AI has been a failure. But when we talk to CEOs or founders or leaders in the advertising or brand marketing space, they're saying they're having success with it. So it's quite a bit different than the
Mm.
private sector versus your specific industry. So in regards to emerging trends, what are the most significant trends shaping the future of marketing, say in the next 5 years or so?
As related to AI or just generally?
I think in general, AI, I think is related to everything in the world
Yeah,
coming up, but
I'm with you on that one for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think I'd like to address maybe why ad agencies have had slightly more success or claim to have had more success with AI first. It's
Yeah.
no stranger to us, first of all. I think there's a misconception about AI where the recency of ChatGPT gives this impression that the whole sphere is recent, but it's anything but recent. We've been using AI tools for more than a couple of decades now. Anytime you point your phone at somebody and the little yellow box, the little reticle goes around their face to identify it, that's machine
Yeah.
learning at work. So I think if we're talking about generative AI, I can see how people would have mixed results from that. The accuracy of it isn't great. The output of it is sometimes a little bit unusual. Certainly the biases that live within it rear their heads in strange, not so hilarious ways often. But in a creative profession, of which most of my industry is made up of,
Yep. Yep.
it's a very useful tool. As long as your expectation of it isn't that it is replacing a thing you make or a person that you have make a thing. It's good at getting you over the hump. The tyranny of the blank page, as they call it, is really good for getting past that today. But like all technology, it's only a matter of time before the conversation you and I are having about this is radically different from that, where today we use it and keep it locked away inside the agency, and we don't use it to produce any final assets for fear of it maybe doing something bad. But like every other technological, I don't want to call it a revolution, it's a bit cliche, but like every other big sweeping tech change that's come through the industry has started out with, is it actually worth it? And ended up being a big part of our day to day. You need to look no further than, say, Photoshop, right? There are no typesetters anymore because of one button in that program.
Yeah.
And I think at the time it was like would look at it and go, it doesn't do as good a job. And it was true then, but it gets better faster than we do. And that makes it useful.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, you definitely did say I'm ex Microsoft, and Sasbury's been doing machine learning and NLP and a number of things for the last 7 years as well. So I probably started as early back as 2010 to 12-ish in the AI space, but we didn't see get past proof of concepts because it was so wide and so like we could predict, hey, this is what we might see, but there wasn't a guarantee or a tangible outcome. And with agentic AI, we can now say 6 weeks tangible outcome evaluation of your return on your investment. And you nailed it there. It's not about reducing headcount. We're not reducing headcount at Sasbury. We're improving it. And
Yeah.
some layman's descriptions is just like the old Roman cathedral where a soldier would walk in with a sword and then someone on the other would come in with a whole bunch of chariot horses in front of them. And that's how we're positioning AI. Your content creators, your brand marketing team, they can now do so much more that they might have had their own smaller team and able to assist them to get the output to your clients. And so we're really excited about being able to do more on our own without the limitations of skill sets and things like that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that, Chris. I think the ability for people to like clearly express themselves quickly is essential to the success of our business. Like
Mhm.
the time pressure that we're under to come up with an idea that's going to work with a huge variety of audiences is
Mhm.
immense. And so the faster you are at getting what's in your head onto a piece of paper, the better off you do. And these tools make it very fast for anybody to get a
Yeah.
good idea on a page in a kind of fidelity that is easy to understand. And I think that that's the thing that triggers fear, though, right? Is like you see it produce your first blush at something quite well, and it makes you start to question, like, is it going to need me the next time I need to do this? And the answer
Yeah.
for today is absolutely it will, but
Yeah.
will that always be true?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm involved in a weekly group of innovators, and they consist of, and they've, a lot of them have come from the movie production world into this AI
Mm.
now. And I know that's not the area you're in, even though I do see that H2 creates stories and videos and marketing that way. How do you think the advancements in AI or machine learning will transform your specific marketing strategies or H2's marketing services?
Yeah, it changes both of those things. First of all, that there's no either or in that. It is both a production tool and a distribution tool, AI, from our point of view. Film and film production is closer to a reality inside
Yeah.
agencies of any size today than ever
Yeah.
before. Like even we're a relatively small place at
Right.
25 people, and we have access to production facilities that would have made a TV producer in the early 2000s blush. So
Yeah.
I
So
think
cool.
on the production end of things, there's an unlimited scope of
Yeah.
what AI is going to enable. Virtual production being the one that I'm personally most interested
Virtual
in.
good as
We
well.
have a big book of tourism clients, and
Yeah.
they all need to show their place at the same time each year. And so
Yeah.
that puts big pressure on us, like to be shooting all within this very compressed time frame, especially in Canada. Virtual production gets us out of those constraints. It lets us fill the shoulder season with other opportunities. And without AI, that kind of tech just doesn't, it's not feasible. It's too slow to create in camera without something like Simulcam that
Yeah.
like James Cameron's developed, which you can have. You can just go to a computer parts store. Do you guys have a Memory Express out your way?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen one of
Yeah.
those in a long time.
This is a Western Canadian blessing. We have this store called Memory Express, and it is like a giant version of the Radio Shack of old. There, no computer
Yeah.
part on the market is not for sale there, and anything that you would need. And if you want to play around with a Simulcam rig, if you want to be able to build virtual production for yourself, you can go to that store and buy the parts you need to do it. And
Oh, well,
that's a very big shift from where production once was.
yeah,
But
that's awesome. It rings a bell, and I haven't bought computer memory in years because everything's cloud for me. But I think
yeah,
I go there to buy RAM, and but you know that what you just said, the world is changing, and consumer behavior is, and the reality is, if your company or that whole industry in whole isn't investing into new types of tool sets leveraging AI, they're probably going to find themselves behind.
yeah,
I'm good friends with a number of marketing firms out here, and I've talked to them about AI, and they've done business the same way they have for 20 years. And my fear for my friends, because they're not taking this serious, is that they won't be able to play catch up. So, are you seeing consumer behavior? Do you anticipate consumer behavior evolving? And how should marketers adapt to these changes?
Yeah.
Because I think people, when they're evaluating a brand company to work with, they're also asking these questions. How are you leveraging new AI and new tool sets to bring more value to us as a customer? So, are you seeing that consumer behavior
Oh, yeah.
change as well?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Like in the strictest sense, like our clients' customers, so the actual consumer, the people we're trying to reach with
Yes.
advertising,
Yeah.
the it hasn't changed much from like in a direct way for them.
Right.
What it
Okay.
has done though for us is change the way that we reach them.
Okay.
Machine learning has made it possible for us to have a much like more granular approach to reaching people in
Gotcha.
general. So being able to reach somebody that's abandoned cart and do retargeting and all of that kind of stuff is supercharged with the help of machine learning and AI. But for our clients, so the people that actually come and try to buy our
Yeah.
services, yes, you are precisely correct. We get asked about AI, but not necessarily in the way you might think. We
Okay.
get asked about it with the wide-eyed hope that maybe it's helping production efficiency. Very rarely. What we actually get asked is, do you use it for final assets? Because there's so much bad content produced by AI right now that
Yeah.
clients are worried that we're just like subbing
Oh.
in agentic AI or even just generative AI
Ah.
to produce crap. Right. And so we have to be really specific with them that we use it in the concepting phase frequently, a lot. And we use it in research a lot to compare answers, verbatim answers from people in a survey. It's really
Right.
good for that because it's a language model. It's good at comparing language. And the other thing that's changed is our services agreement. So our master services agreement at H2 now has a clause in it that just reminds them that we do use AI for concept development. We do not use it for any final assets today. But even
Good.
if we did, none of us could own it. And that can open up clients to all sorts of nasty stuff, like not the smallest of which being that their competitors can then use that asset in novel ways without us being able to take any sort of legal action. So it has a really wide ranging effect on everybody we deal with, from our clients, customers to our day-to-day contact and
Right.
through our new business process.
That's interesting. So what I heard there, consumer behavior is, hey, don't just spit out AI garbage for us. We want quality. And in regards to AI, what's our privacy? What are we going to do to prevent
Yeah.
our data and our content getting into our competitors' hands? Is
Hmm.
that what you mentioned?
Yeah, it isn't so much the data getting into the competitors' hands. I worry about that too, but we're like most firms I've found have pretty good data security in
Okay.
general these days. Like
Great.
working with data is like a given in marketing. You cannot do the job without it. And so we've
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
gotten very good at making sure we don't like accidentally leak hordes of personal information about our customers. AI certainly makes us worry about that. Make no mistake about it. But the thing we actually worry about more in that space is its ability to own what's produced with it. If
Okay.
you think about, say, something like dish soap, right? Like dish soap ads have been the same for 55 years, which is look at our dish soap, now look at this competitor's dish soap, look at how the grease didn't move, look at how the grease did move,
Okay. Yeah.
like that kind of stuff, right? So now if you imagine in today's context, in 2025, making that same dip grease product demonstration ad entirely with AI, when it's done, if you're Dawn, you don't have the ability to copyright what you just produced, which means
Ah,
Palmolive can come along and use that in their social media networks and say, look at how arrogant they are. Look how silly the color of their
ah,
water is. Or and you have no way to
interesting.
no recourse for that because nobody gets to own that asset. They can do whatever they want with it. So we're really specific about what is produced with AI and how it gets used for that reason. We don't want to expose our clients to maybe ridicule, or we don't want to create something that we can't own that then later becomes a problem for them when they're trying to figure out licensing agreements with
Right.
SAG-AFTRA or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So not traditional from a corporate data privacy. Concerns are more of we need to be able to copyright this and prevent us
Right.
from being leveraged from. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's nuanced. And I think that really speaks to how like powerful that technology is, that it can have such a broad range of effects on just my one little company with my small group of clients. Every one of them is affected by it. And every one of their customers, my clients' customers, is affected by it in some way, but differently in each case.
Yeah, so that then segues into the next part, content marketing. So, I was going to ask, what role do you see content marketing playing in the future? But I think it's more what you're describing, that they're able to produce content that is not only engaging, more engaging, but also protecting the users, which AI could decrease the protection that they have by leveraging it.
Yeah, that's really true. And it does make it easier for us to produce content, like without question. The
Yeah,
quality of
right.
that content is dubious in some cases, but there are production techniques that are starting to evolve in our world, my agency and everybody else's included, that that are using particularly generative AI in a slightly different way than I think maybe was intended by its creators. A really good example of this is an art director that's local to our market here. His name's Brad Connell, and he creates characters for one of his clients' ad campaigns. And he uses the Firefly image generator that's in Adobe's product to
Okay.
create components of that character. So like an
Okay.
arm and a leg. And it's really good at like just getting that rough piece out into virtual space for him to be able to assemble and turn into virtual character. Now, it's not great at creating a whole character, but it can help him like shape the pieces of it. He works like a sculptor. It
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
help him shape the pieces of it quite quickly and give him consistency from right arm to left arm and that sort of thing. I've seen him do a demonstration of his use of that tool to do it. So in like small, very specific, very focused content creation scenarios, the generative tools today are actually pretty decent, but they fall down when you start using them to like unilaterally create a piece of media. So getting it to create a whole video,
Gotcha.
getting it to create a whole image. Then the uncanny valley starts to show up. You can see the like quirks of the bias
Yeah.
within the training data. So
Mhm.
all of that starts to show up when you try to do it that way. Now, again, I cannot say this enough. Like, I don't think that's going to be the truth forever. I don't
Right.
have any illusions about the fact that every year that's going to get substantially better than it was the year before.
Right.
But for the time that we're in right now, what I see, like people like Brad and people like Nicole Saint Amon from my team here as a copywriter, for them, they are actively using those tools. They are actively trying to make those tools part of production. And
Right.
that effort that they're willing to put into it tells me that it's giving them a benefit that they hadn't had before.
Yes.
And the mistake I would be making as a leader in our company would be to stop them,
Yeah.
like to put the
Yeah,
brakes on
exactly.
it
Yeah.
and to fear it. And instead, it's better for me to understand like how it's taking shape within their day-to-day work. And that way, as the tools come out, it makes it easier to evaluate. I know
Yeah.
that Nicole uses it in this context. So when somebody comes in with a new tool, I can say that context matches the way we use it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a better one to be moving on
Yep.
to.
That's definitely a leadership quote you just said there. I can't stop my people from investing in time to exploring how AI can help, because if you do, then you're going to be caught. But they're not there yet, is what you're saying. But we got to have them continue to explore that. And that kind of falls into some thoughts of what I was seeing too, like how AI is completely transforming the media side. It's really going to start getting down to these local influencers that I mentioned to you before. Influence marketing is going to change. And
Mhm.
how do brands leverage that effectively now that
Yeah.
this is going to evolve? Do you provide influencer marketing as well
Oh
through?
yeah, creator marketing is really important, I think.
Uh-huh.
And it tends to get looked at as like the 21st century equivalent of spokespeople. But,
Oh,
with spokespeople, you had to hire them and then you had to go get an audience for them to stand in front of. Is it
right.
like very different than creators who come with their own audience? And I agree with you, Chris. I think that side of marketing is going to be very affected by this. And part of the reason is many creators of differing scales are producers as well. So they
Yeah.
have to make their own stuff. They
Yeah.
have to distribute their own stuff. They have to figure out like how their audience reacts to things. And then they have to choose to work with brands where it makes sense for them, where
Yeah.
the audience that they have is receptive to them. But the tools for actually making the content are, powered by AI today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that gives us a huge variety
Yeah.
of people that can produce really high quality content for their audiences. The trick on our side, honestly, with creators has almost nothing to do with technology. The trick is working with brands to make sure that they understand that a creator is not a spokesperson. A creator has their own audience that loves them for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's the brand's job to figure out how they can ride that love, not be the subject of the next video. They watch those videos because
Gotcha.
they like the person, not because they like
Gotcha.
the brand sponsoring it. And it's
Yeah.
easy to forget that. And especially for people that have been doing this since like before social media, that
Oh,
remember
for
like
sure. Yeah.
Wilfred Brimley coming out to talk about diabetes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting because the tech group that I'm involved with, they'll say that we're at that level of AI being at human thinking. Some say it's a little below, some say it's a little over. But the interesting fact is they say in 5 years from now that AI is going to evolve into being 5,000 times smarter than a human being.
Hmm.
So that being said, career advice, my son's fourth year digital media at university right now. I've even asked him, what are the professors pushing you to do in regards to AI? And they're like, oh, we can't use AI. I'm like, you're fourth year digital media, and they're saying you can't use AI. I'm trying to understand there must be some logic behind that. Whereas with my team, I want everyone, including my chief of staff, my accountants, all leveraging new tools. So, in regards to career advice, what skills do you think will most be valuable for marketers like my son to develop in the coming years to really be able to get a career going like what you've established?
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's a good question. So, first of all, I think fear around the tools that are available in industry finding its way into academia is not great. And
No.
I'm lucky here. I've had a chance to work with SAIT to develop course content for their media production and design
Oh,
curricula.
cool.
And I have some contact with Bow Valley College here. Both of those organizations have gone to like great lengths to find best practices for using AI as part of your time as a student. So they're
Okay.
actively encouraging the use of these tools in a responsible way. Like the Bow Valley College person I last spoke to about it said that one of the things they do is they spend a lot of time showing them the difference between getting a good prompt that gets you a nuanced answer and just having chat gpt do that like first blush to understand a
Yeah.
thing, which is it's good at that, but it doesn't actually help you. It doesn't really get you that far ahead. The
Right.
trick of it is to understand it at that first blush level and then use the machine to explore it more deeply is the way that they teach kids to use it. So the short answer to your question is I think in schools they should realize that they're going to get used and it's better to make sure that they're being used properly
Mm.
than anything else. And there's plenty of analogs to this. Like scientific calculators went through this problem.
Yep.
Wikipedia went through this problem in the past. Autocomplete in IDEs went through this problem in the past. How are people going to learn to code if the IDE is always auto completing their functions? And there are plenty of amazing coders that came out of that time too. So I think the baseline for what you need to be able to do to create is always getting just a little bit lower in as technology progresses everywhere. And AI just seems scary because it resembles the way that we do create things.
Mm.
And so that can be a little bit perplexing to us. It's not the
Yeah.
same as Wikipedia, where Wikipedia was like crowdsourced, so it was like a
Yeah.
dubious source potentially, turned out to be a good source in the end.
Yeah.
Or the scientific calculator, which is, are they going to forget their math fundamentals,
Oh, yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
realizing that it was more beneficial that the math fundamentals just be like packed away as a couple of buttons and the deep
Right.
thinking about a big math problem was actually the more valuable thing. So
Love it.
that's my point of view on AI. And I'm
Gotcha.
glad to see education not having just one direction to run straight the other direction from it right now.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm pushing my son to explore everything that he's an intern for us at Sasbury, and we're pushing him to, I'm like, hey, what'd you build this in? And if it's the old traditional Adobe way without using their advanced tools, I'm saying go redo it in the new one, just because I want him to get into that habit. So
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Scott King, veteran of the browser wars, president of H2 Accelerator based out of Calgary and Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Buy Canadian if you're Canadian, and I'm sure you're doing an impact in the US as well. And Scott, thanks a lot for being my guest today, and hopefully we come across in person where we can share some more talks in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. I'm really grateful for the time today. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.